I still remember the first time I saw him. It wasn't love at first sight. Not like you see in the movies. It was something quieter, simpler. It was the kind of feeling that whispers instead of shouting. He smiled at me from across a crowded coffee shop. And just for a moment, I forgot all the noise around us. There was something so gentle in his eyes, like he saw me, really saw me before I even said a word. We ended up talking for hours that day. About everything and nothing. Our lives, our dreams, the books we loved, all the little things that made us who we were. And when he laughed, it felt like sunlight breaking through the clouds. That night, when I got home, I just couldn't stop smiling. I called my best friend and told her, he's different. She just laughed and said, you always say that, but deep down, I knew this time it was real. The months that followed were magical. Love grew between us like a secret garden, blooming more each day. He would text me every morning, good morning, my sunshine, and every single night, sleep well, my heart. It was never about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It was always in the small things. The way he truly listened when I spoke, the way he made me feel completely safe, the way he'd just reach out and hold my hand when words weren't enough. When he proposed, it was raining, not a downpour, just a soft, gentle drizzle that made the city lights shimmer. He looked at me and said, I don't have much, but I promise you, everything I have will be yours. And I said yes. Instantly, without a single hesitation, without any fear, because I truly believed that our love, this beautiful thing we had, could survive anything the world threw at us. Our wedding day was beautiful. It was a blur of white lilies, constant laughter, music, and the warmth of all our family and friends. When I started walking down the aisle and saw him, his eyes were wet with tears. He leaned in and whispered, "You're my forever." And I believed him with every fiber of my being. The first year of our marriage was everything I had ever dreamed of and more. We didn't have a lot of money, but we were rich in happiness. We had late-night drives with the windows down, movie marathons on the couch, and cooking disasters that always ended with us laughing until we cried. We fought sometimes. Of course, what couple doesn't? But we had a rule. We would always make up before falling asleep. He'd pull me close, hold me tight, and whisper, "We'll never go to bed angry." And we never did. I started keeping a journal, writing down all our little moments, the way he'd leave silly notes on the fridge for me to find, or the way he'd bring home my favorite chocolate on a random Tuesday, just because. In one entry, I wrote, "If love has a face, it's his." But then, slowly, something began to change. It wasn't sudden. It crept in quietly, like a shadow at dusk. He stopped sending those good morning texts. Our late-night talks became shorter, more distant. The easy laughter that used to fill our home started to fade. At first, I just told myself it was stress from work. Pay or play change, relationships evolve, right? But there was this small voice deep inside me, a gut feeling that whispered, something's wrong. He started staying out late. "Just a lot of work at the office," he'd say, kissing my forehead before he left. I wanted to believe him. God, I really did. But belief without trust feels so heavy. It creates an ache in places you can't even point to. One night, I stayed up waiting for him. It was long past midnight. The dinner I had made was cold on the stove. My phone stayed silent. When he finally walked through the door, he smelled of a perfume that wasn't mine. My heart just froze. I didn't say a word. He smiled at me like nothing was wrong, so I smiled back, pretending everything was right. I went to bed that night and cried silent tears into my pillow. Tears I didn't let him see. He turned his back to me in his sleep. And in that moment, I realized that's how love ends. Not with a bang, not with screaming and fighting, but with silence and a space between you and the bed. Days bled into weeks. He was physically there, but he wasn't there. We'd eat dinner together, but our eyes would never meet. He started locking his phone, something he'd never done before. I told myself not to look, not to spy, not to become that wife. But curiosity is a cruel, cruel thing when your heart is already breaking. One evening, He left his phone on the coffee table while he went to take a shower. It buzzed, and the screen lit up. I glanced over. Just once, a message flashed across the screen from a name I didn't recognize. "I miss you too, baby. Can't wait to see you again," followed by a red heart emoji. My hands started to tremble. The world around me went blurry. My heart didn't just break, it shattered. It shattered not just because he cheated, but because he had been lying to my face while holding me close every single night. I didn't confront him that day. I couldn't find the words. I just sat there alone in the dark, the phone's glow lighting up my face, thinking about every "I love you" he ever said. Thinking about how easily those 3 beautiful words can turn to ashes. That night, I opened my journal and wrote one last entry about us. I used to think love dies loudly with a dramatic, heartbreaking crash, but it doesn't. It just slips away quietly, one lie at a time. It started with silence, not the peaceful, comforting kind that settles in a room after a shared laugh, but a different kind. An echoing silence, the kind that eats away at you from the inside out, making you endlessly question if you said something wrong. Or maybe you didn't say enough. I remember how it used to be. Every single morning, I'd wake up, roll over, and whisper, "Good morning," with a genuine smile. And he used to reply with such warmth, his voice still thick with sleep. But then, things changed. His replies became shorter, colder. It felt like he was always somewhere else, somewhere far away that I couldn't reach, no matter how hard I tried. At first, I made excuses for him, for us. I told myself he was just tired. Men work hard, right? He's probably just stressed from work. So, I tried harder. I kept cooking his favorite meals, the ones he used to rave about. I'd wear the perfume he once told me he loved, hoping the scent would remind him of us, of the good times. I did everything I could, all while pretending not to notice the vast, growing distance between us. But the silence? Oh, that silence. It just grew louder with each passing day. It was deafening. Some evenings, he'd come home from work, sink into the couch, and just scroll endlessly through his phone, barely even looking up at me. It was like I was invisible. Other times, he'd forget the small things, the little details that once made up the fabric of our life together. My birthday, our silly inside jokes, even something as simple as how I liked my tea. Each forgotten memory, each overlooked detail felt like a small, sharp cut, and I just kept bleeding quietly, hoping he wouldn't notice the mess. One evening, I was serving dinner, and I happened to catch our reflection in the dark kitchen window. He was sitting at the table, completely lost in his own thoughts, and I was standing there, holding a dish that was growing cold. In that reflection, I saw it clearly for the first time. We looked like strangers, 2 people sharing a house, but not a home. Living in the same space, but not in the same world. 1,000 questions bubbled up inside me. I wanted to scream, "What's wrong? Talk to me." I wanted to just ask, "Are you okay?" But a terrified little voice inside me whispered, "What if he says yes? Because if he says he's okay, then what's my excuse for feeling this unbearably lonely? What does that say about me? About us?" So, I smiled instead. I plastered on a smile and asked about his day. I smiled through every painfully short dinner. I smiled through every conversation that ended before it even began. I smiled through every single night he turned away from me in bed, creating a physical canyon between us. I smiled so much, so often, that I think even my own reflection in the mirror stopped believing me. And somewhere in between all the pretending, between trying to hold the crumbling pieces of our love together with my bare hands, I started losing myself. I stopped writing in my journal, something I'd done my whole life. I stopped wearing the bright, happy colors I loved, opting for muted tones that matched how I felt inside. I even stopped recognizing the sound of my own laugh on the rare occasions that it escaped. I had become a ghost in my own life. It's a strange and heartbreaking thing how love can fade so quietly. It doesn't always end with a dramatic fight or a tearful slam door goodbye. Sometimes It just withers. It dies with silence, with unspoken distance, with two hearts standing right next to each other, yet separated by miles of what's been left unsaid. That night, lying in bed, the space between us felt wider than ever. He was fast asleep, facing the other side of the bed as usual, and in the darkness, I finally let myself whisper the words I've been holding back for so long. I miss you. But the only answer I got was silence. I don't know when it began. Maybe it was the way he started guarding his phone, tilting the screen away whenever I walked past, or how he began stepping outside to take calls. Calls that used to happen right in front of me, with me sometimes chiming in. At first, I told myself not to overthink it. It's so easy to let your mind run wild, right? He's just busy, I'd say to myself. He's tired. He's stressed from work. I made excuses for him because the alternative was too painful to even consider. But deep down, in that quiet place you can't lie to, something felt different. The air in our home had changed. It was thinner, colder. He started coming home late, and the excuse was always the same, delivered with a tired sigh. Work was crazy, but I could smell the lie. Not in his words, but in his silence. The silence that followed was deafening. It was a space where our connection used to be, and now it was just empty. There were moments, small, fleeting moments, when I'd catch him smiling at his phone. It was a small, secret smile, the kind he used to give me when we first met, the kind that said, "You're my world." Seeing that smile directed at a glowing screen, a screen I wasn't a part of, felt like a tiny paper cut on my heart. Each time it happened, another little piece of me broke quietly inside. It's a strange feeling to be mourning a relationship while you're still in it. I tried to talk to him. I really did. I stopped asking direct questions like, "Who are you talking to?" Because every time I did, he got defensive. The walls would go up instantly. "Why are you always so suspicious? Can't I have some privacy?" He'd snap. And every argument, every attempt to reconnect ended the same way, me crying in silence in our bedroom, and him walking away, grabbing his keys like my pain didn't matter, like I didn't matter. The house that once felt so warm, so full of our laughter and our future plans, now felt cold and vast. It was like I was sharing my home with a stranger. He looked the same, he spoke the same, his laughs sounded the same, but his eyes didn't know me anymore. They'd look at me, but they'd look right through me. Have you ever felt that? To be completely invisible to the one person you want to be seen by the most. One night, while he was in the shower, his phone, left on the nightstand, buzzed. My heart started pounding against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of dread. I didn't mean to look, I really didn't. I fought against the urge, my hands clenched into fists. But I did. My eyes darted to the screen, and a single message preview flashed on the lock screen. A message not from his boss, not from his mom, but from a name I didn't recognize. It said, "I miss you too." The world around me just stopped. The hum of the shower, the ticking of the clock, everything went silent. My hands trembled so much I had to put them under my legs to stop them. The air felt heavy, thick, like my chest couldn't expand enough to hold the weight of that one simple sentence. I didn't unlock the phone. I didn't open the chat. I didn't need to see the history. That one line was enough to shatter the fragile illusion I had been so desperately clinging to. All the little lies I told myself, all the excuses I made for him, they all came crashing down at once. When he came out of the shower, a towel wrapped around his waist, humming a tune. I looked at him, and for the first time in a long time, I saw him clearly, not as my partner, not as the man I loved, but as someone I no longer knew. The familiarity was gone, replaced by a chilling distance. He noticed my silence that night. He sat on the edge of the bed and asked, "Are you okay?" "You're being quiet." I managed to pull a smile onto my face, that same fake, brittle smile I'd been wearing for months, and I whispered, "I'm fine." But inside, I wasn't fine. Inside, something had died. The hope, the trust, The future we had built it was all gone. And that's when I realized the most profound, gut-wrenching truth. The worst kind of pain, ISNT, when someone packs their bags and leaves you, it's when they're still there, sleeping next to you every night, but their heart has already gone. They've left you long before they walk out the door. I remember that night with a clarity that still haunts me. It was the night I finally decided I couldn't live wrapped in lies anymore. The night I chose a painful truth over a comfortable deception. He came home late again, a pattern that had become all too familiar. But this Chimi, I wasn't waiting on the couch with a forced smile, ready to accept whatever excuse he'd rehearsed on the drive home. I had spent the day, the week, the month, gathering the shredded pieces of my courage. Tonight, I would ask, not because I wanted a fight, not because I craved the drama of a confrontation, but because I needed to stop dying a little bit inside every single day. He walked in, the picture of exhaustion. Or maybe it was just a performance. He dropped his keys onto the small wooden table by the door, the clatter echoing in the tense silence of our home. He loosened his tie, a gesture I once found endearing. Now it just felt like he was shedding a costume. He looked right through me, as if I were a ghost in my own living room. My voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the air like a razor. "Who is she?" He froze. Just for a second, his eyes, the same eyes I had stared into on our wedding day, flickered. A tiny, almost imperceptible shift, but in that 1 second, my entire world of suspicion solidified into a devastating certainty. That single, fleeting moment confirmed everything my heart had been trying to deny. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence that stretched between us was thick with unspoken words, heavy with betrayal. It screamed the truth. He was too cowardly to speak. I could feel my own heart, a frantic, trapped bird beating against my ribs. My lips trembled, but I forced myself to push forward to see this through to its bitter end. "I saw the message," I continued, my voice shaking. "I didn't open it, but I know." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration, and let out a long, theatrical sigh. Then came the words. The 4 words that I'm convinced are etched into the cheater's handbook. The first line of defense, he whispered, "It's not what you think. Isn't that what they all say?" It's the universal anthem of the unfaithful. And for a split second, a desperate, foolish part of me wanted to cling to that lie. I wanted to believe him, to rewind Chimi, to erase this conversation and go back to the ignorant bliss of yesterday. Almost, but when I forced myself to look into his eyes, truly look, I didn't see remorse for his actions. I didn't see a man heartbroken over the pain he'd caused. I saw regret, the selfish regret of being caught, the annoyance of having his secret life exposed. That's when the tears began to fall. They slid down my cheeks before I even consciously registered that I was crying. My voice, when it came out, was a fractured, broken thing. "I gave you everything," I choked out. "My love, my trust, my entire soul. Was it not enough?" He remained silent. And that silence was louder and more damning than any confession. It was an admission of guilt, a confirmation of my worthlessness in his eyes. It was a void where his love used to be. Then, finally, he spoke again, his voice soft, as if that could somehow lessen the blow. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. "It just happened. It just happened." Those 2 words stabbed me deeper than the affair itself. As if love is an accident. As if shattering someone's heart and their entire reality is a minor slip-up. An oopsie you make without thinking. Like spilling coffee, not destroying a life. The casualness of his dismissal, the sheer lack of accountability. It was breathtaking. I had to turn away. I couldn't look at his face anymore. My chest felt tight, constricted, like a band was tightening around my lungs. My heart was screaming, a silent, primal roar of pain and disbelief. The tears burned my skin, but I let them fall. I let them wash over me, because, for the very first time, I realized these tears weren't for him. They weren't for the loss of our love or our future. I was crying for me. I was mourning the woman I used to be, the woman who loved so fiercely and with such unguarded depth, the woman who trusted too easily, who saw only the good, who believed in the fairy tale of forever, when forever clearly didn't believe in her. That night, there was no shouting. There were no plates thrown against the wall. I didn't beg him to choose me. I didn't ask him to stay. My rage had burned out, leaving only the cold ashes of resolve. I simply turned back to him, looked at the stranger wearing my husband's face, and whispered, "Thank you." He looked confused. "Thank you," I repeated, my voice finding a sliver of strength, "for finally telling me the truth. Even if it destroyed me." He took a step towards me, his hand reaching out, a pathetic, last-ditch effort to offer comfort he had no right to give, but I stepped back. It was just a single step, but it was a chasm, a distance that could never be crossed again. That one backward motion was my declaration of independence. The truth was finally out in the open, raw and ugly, and with its arrival, everything else shattered. My marriage, my meticulously planned dreams, my heart, it all broke into a million irreparable pieces on our living room floor. But as I stood there, surrounded by the wreckage of my life, somewhere deep inside the agony, beneath the layers of pain and betrayal, I felt something new, something I hadn't felt in a very, very long time. It was freedom. The terrifying, liberating freedom from the constant anxiety, from the second guessing, from the lies I told myself, freedom from pretending everything was okay. It was the freedom to finally begin again. The morning after he left, the house was silent, almost too silent. There were no footsteps, no smell of coffee brewing, no voice calling my name from the other room. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was completely and truly alone. And the strangest thing happened. It didn't feel as terrifying as I had always imagined it would. Of course, at first, I cried. I let it all out. But as the tears streamed down my face, I realized I wasn't crying because I missed him. I was crying for the person I used to be, before all the arguments, before the walking on eggshells, before all the pain. I missed the me I had lost along the way. Those first few days melted into weeks. The nights were the hardest, without a doubt. The bed felt cavernously large, and the silence was so loud it echoed with memories I tried so hard to push away. It was a struggle, but then, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, something started to shift. I began to breathe again. Not just shallow, anxious breaths, but deep, lung-filling breaths of fresh air. I caught myself smiling, a genuine smile, not for anyone else, but for me. It started with small things, tiny acts of rebellion against the life I had been living. I picked up a book I'd been wanting to read for months. I went for long walks with no destination, just my feet on the pavement. I cooked my favorite meals, the ones he never liked, and I filled the silent house with music. I loved the songs I had stopped playing because he'd always complain. And in those quiet, simple moments, I started to meet myself again. It felt like reuniting with a long-lost friend. I'd catch my reflection in the mirror in the morning. My eyes still looked tired. I won't lie, but there was a new softness to them. The sadness was still there, a faint shadow, but behind it I could see a quiet strength beginning to emerge. It was a profound realization. I had spent so long, so many years waiting for someone to love me the right way, that I had completely forgotten how to love myself first. I had put my own happiness in someone else's hands, and now I was finally taking it back. Let me be clear, healing wasn't a straight line. It wasn't this magical, overnight transformation. It came in waves. There were days I felt like I could conquer the world, powerful and invincible. And then there were other days where a random song or a familiar scent would send me crashing down, breaking apart all over again. But here's the difference. Every time I fell apart, I learned how to put myself back together, piece by piece, tear by tear. Each time, I felt a little stronger, a little more whole. I was rebuilding myself on my own terms. Then, one evening, it happened. I saw him again. It was completely by accident, just a chance encounter on the street. He looked at me, and I could see the surprise in his eyes. And I smiled. It wasn't a smile born from lingering love or a desire to get back together. It was a smile of peace, a smile of closure. Because by then, I had already forgiven him. And this is so important to understand. I didn't forgive him for his sake. I did it for mine. Forgiveness didn't mean I forgot what happened or that the pain wasn't real. It meant I was choosing myself over my pain. I was choosing to release the weight of that anger and resentment because it was only holding me back. It was my final act of setting myself free. That night, I stood by my open window, just feeling the cool air on my face. For the first time in such a long, long while, I whispered to the quiet room, to the night sky, to myself, I'm free. Free from the expectations. Free from the hurtful words. Free from the memories that once held me captive. Free from the woman I had to be to keep him. In the end, yes, I had lost him. But in that process, I had found myself, and finding me, the real me, was the most beautiful, unexpected, and perfect ending I could have ever asked for. It wasn't an ending at all, really. It was a new beginning. My beginning. Thank you so much for sharing this moment with me. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories we don't tell you, and you are not alone on your journey.